Hi and welcome everyone to this Thursday afternoon Hangouts on Air. My name is Elene Marsden and I'm absolutely delighted today with the guest that I've got to introduce you to. But before we get started on that, I'm just going to give you a little overview about my mission. Really, it's to get good speakers coming in to share great ideas with the community, and all this information is free and available. So I'm on a mission, as I said, to help everyone. Hold on 1 minute. Right, a big apologies for that. That was my screw-up number one. Hopefully there won't be any others. My video was playing live on my Facebook channel at the same time as this, so I'm going to roll back and start again. I did say it was live, and things do happen. So this is not recorded in any kind of studio. This is live, happening on air. So let's start again. My name is Elene Marsden, and I'd really like to welcome you to this live Google Hangout, and today I've got with me John Millar from The Green Chair. Now, you've probably seen all the advertising out there, his wonderful green chair logo, and John set up his business a few years ago, but his main thread that runs through his life is Qigong. He's been doing that for about 17 years now, and that influences all the things that he does in his life, and I'm sure he'll be telling us a little bit more about that. But what else do I know about John? Well, I only met him quite recently, and he gave a presentation to a business group, and at the time I thought, I really need to find out more about what John's doing. And then I lost touch with him, and it was only a couple of weeks ago that I reconnected. So I think this hangout was meant to happen. We were meant to do this and to get together and share some good news with you. So I think without further ado, I'll let John, introduce himself, probably in a better way than me, and tell us a little bit more about how he came to form Green Chair and what it's all about. So John, are you standing by to take over? There you go. You're live, we can see you. So tell me a little bit more about the Green Chair, first of all.
The Green Chair came into being through a conversation I was having with somebody, and it was a model I was using to try to explain a concept that sits at the heart of Qigong. Mm-hmm. And it sat with 3 questions, and the questions were, if we lived in a world where everything was red, could we define red?
Ah.
And it was just an idea of we become so tuned into the familiar that we ignore the familiar.
Right.
And then the question sat with, if someone put a green chair into the red world, how would you respond? And then the third question was, could you sit in the green chair and look at the redness that surrounds you? So it's a model that sits with the idea of gaining perspective, looking back on the familiar and on the habitual things that we do, and questioning them and seeing whether or not we can do things differently, seeing whether or not there's opportunities to change, opportunities to enhance what we do.
And I can imagine people might be very worried about sitting in that green chair because it's so different to their reality.
Yeah, fortunately it's a virtual chair, and so we haven't had the offer yet. But yeah, it's not always a comfortable place for people to be. But actually, there's techniques that you can use in order to draw people into having that experience, in order to help them explore that place.
Yes.
And the tool that we use is Qigong.
Qigong.
But it's very, very simple, very approachable techniques that sit within the practice of Qigong. It's not about getting...
I was going to say, what is Qigong then? Because some people might not even have heard of Qigong.
Qigong, it has a lot of similarities with Tai Chi.
Hmm.
People tend to be more familiar with Tai Chi,
Hmm.
but Tai Chi at its heart is a martial art, and Qigong at its heart is part of traditional Chinese medicine.
Hmm.
So it's a
Hmm.
health practice,
Mm.
and it's about combining movement, breath, and ideas.
Right.
So it starts to fall very much in line with the ideas that we have now around embodied training. And
Okay.
actually, you start to look at the work that Morabian's done on body language, and you can find information in that that relates back to Qigong. You can
Mm.
find references in all kinds of places, but it's sometimes described as a moving meditation.
Right. Right.
Um, it's made up of two words, Qi,
Hmm.
which people are sort of familiar with.
Mm.
It tends to get translated as energy, but I think that's
Mm.
I'm not a fan of the translation.
Okay.
Um,
Mm.
I like explaining it by using the original Chinese character, and the original Chinese character was three horizontal lines,
Right.
and they depicted the vapor that rises to form clouds.
Okay.
So there's an idea here that what Qi is, it's something that we can't see, but we can
Uh-huh.
see the end result of it.
Right. Right.
Um,
Interesting.
So
Mm.
one of the models that I use when I'm training in business is I ask people whether they would prefer an original artwork or a copy.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
nearly everybody is going to say, I'll have the original.
Right.
There's an idea that that the artist had more investment in the
Ah,
original artwork,
yes.
and somehow more value within it. And this would be classed as chi.
Right. That's quite intangible as well, isn't it? You can't really touch it or anything. It's just somehow there.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's something that so many people can relate to.
Mm.
You know, would
Mm.
you prefer to have something that was handmade, or would you prefer to have something that was mass-produced?
Oh, definitely handmade. So that's the chi. What's the gung then?
The gung gets translated as work.
Okay.
Um, I like the idea the gung is the work that sits with mastery. So once you've learned how to ride a bike,
Mm.
you don't have to think about riding the bike. You just get on the bike and ride it.
Okay. Yeah.
Once you've learned how to drive a car, you don't have to think, oh, now I'm going to press the clutch, I'm going to change the gear, I'm going to. You just get on and do it. This is gung.
Yes. And
This is an
you've
effort.
been learning qigong for 17 years, haven't you? Do you feel like you've mastered it yet?
No, absolutely not. Um, the the teachers that I work with out in China, they've been practicing for sort of 25, 30, 40 years,
Mm.
and they haven't mastered it.
Mm.
Um, but actually, Qigong is just a tool.
Right.
It's just something that we use. It's what sits beyond the Qigong.
Okay.
But but mastery in itself is an interesting idea. It's an interesting concept because when you mastered riding a bike,
Mm.
what could
Mm.
you do with it?
Mm.
You could ride
Mm.
it down the shops and back. You,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
you
Mm.
didn't become a world champion,
Mm.
but you had mastered the skill.
Mm.
And so I always view mastery as being the point at which we can actually start to use the tool. Mastery sits with Gung.
Yes.
When you can do something effortlessly, then you can start to really use it. Then you can really start to learn.
Uh-huh. Yes,
Um,
indeed.
and so, yeah, I tend to use that as the idea of mastery.
I'm with you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah. So let's just go back to what we're going to be talking about today, this clarity of thought and how practice can help businesses perhaps be a bit more organized. Tell me something about that.
um, if we come back to the idea of of the painting
Right.
and the idea of how the artist um, creates the painting,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a saying that the chi follows the e, and the e is the mind.
Okay.
So when the mind is focused on something, we
Mm.
put this intangible thing to it.
Mm.
So the artist, by focusing on the idea that they have, creates the artwork.
Mm.
Okay, there is physical process involved,
Mm.
but actually it sits with the thought of when you put your mind clearly to something,
Mm.
you create something special.
Mm. Mm.
Um, But similarly, if you're lying awake in bed at 4 in the morning thinking, I've got to get up in 3 hours, I've got a really difficult day ahead of me, I've got all this type of thing
Yes.
going on, where is the mind?
Mm.
The mind is already on tomorrow.
Mm.
You're already putting your efforts into tomorrow. You're not putting your efforts into sleeping. And so there's all kinds of models that sit around this. So the idea that sits within Qigong about using the mind to direct the Qi, or using the mind to direct our effort, is absolutely core to the practice.
Right.
So when we start to use movement, when we start to use ideas, when we start to integrate habits into our day, we can use these habits to remind ourselves of what we should be focusing on.
Right.
And you see it in the most amazing places. I caught a little bit of a football match a couple of years ago, and
Okay.
I watched the manager walking up and down the touchline.
Oh, yes.
and you saw him in a moment of absolute frustration go,
Yeah.
and just throw his hands down.
Yes.
Almost a Qigong practice.
Ah.
This is that I've had enough, I'm just going to let it go.
Yes, yes. I mean, the body language that we do is so indicative of what's happening in our mind, isn't it? It's we can't help it somehow.
Absolutely. And so we have these techniques, and a lot of them we just do naturally. But actually, when we introduce a new idea, when we introduce an idea around slowing the breath, or using one of the techniques that I use quite extensively is a breathing technique.
Right.
That it has no biological reference point. It's not about understanding how the anatomy works.
Okay.
It's about bringing your focus into a part of the body and noticing the breath there.
Right. Right.
And when you do that, the breath slows.
Uh-huh.
And when the breath slows, the heart rate slows. When the heart rate slows, we're sending a signal to ourselves that we don't need to be in this heightened state, in this more stressful state. And actually, when you look at the way that that affects brain activity as well, you start to come out of the more emotional aspects of the brain. You come out of the limbic system, and the things that control fight or flight responses, and you are able to move back into the logical brain. You're able to have a more complete way of viewing things.
I think I could have probably done with that today after the public speaking we all had to do at our networking group. You know, the stress levels of just before you speak, that deep breathing and focusing on your breath, very valuable.
Yeah, and actually halfway through the speech, because I managed to forget about Hangout while I stood up and said my piece this morning, and there was a moment of just going, I've just remembered that I should have said something, and there was one breath, and I took one breath, which was that exact thing.
Wow.
And the way that the room responded to that was really interesting, because just that one thing, suddenly people are drawing in, suddenly people are engaged.
Well, do you know, actually, somebody said, was that staged? They thought it was really amazing. They thought we'd worked on that together as a double act, that one breath. It just goes to show.
I wish I could say yes to that, but no, it's just when a technique becomes habit.
Right.
Instead of that first response being, oh my God, what do I do? The first response is this habitual breath. It's this idea. And then immediately we have the clarity, we have the presence in order to take the right course of action, or to take a course of action that's maybe slightly better informed.
I like the idea of that one breath. Do you do any other like physical practice, like a particular position that you might want to move into to perhaps wake you up or to energize you or to give you a bit more power?
There are certain movements that we use when we're in full practice. When, as a Qigong practitioner, I'm in full practice. The evening practice is a standing meditation, and this is holding a single posture in a very relaxed way for anywhere between an hour and 2 hours. And that's a very interesting practice. It's quite challenging, and it brings up all kinds of things, but it's actually a very calm place to be. It's a great thing to do of an evening, but it doesn't necessarily set you up and energize you for the day.
Okay.
I sometimes refer to a practice that I call cup of coffee and a fag.
All right.
The idea that have you ever come downstairs after maybe a slightly late night and maybe
Oh yeah, once or twice.
a little bit too much indulgence, and you go and put the kettle on, and you just
Yes.
yourself going, oh, yeah, just roll the shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
These little practices, these little things that we do,
Yeah.
if you open the back door on a sunny morning and step out and just go,
Yeah.
it completely wakes you. You take a moment just to listen to the birds. You
Yes.
take a moment just to be there, and it completely invigorates you.
Well, you're lucky where you are because you've got deer, birds. You're right out in the Suffolk countryside, aren't you? So there's a lot to listen to out there.
Yeah, this is a fair point. But it's just as true when I'm working up in London. There's always space, and actually, I'm yet to find a place that I haven't been able to go outside and take a breath and find that freshness.
So that take a breath then, that could interrupt your perhaps pattern of negativity. That's one good thing. And going back to the clarity of thought, you mentioned to me before about, not having so much clutter around you. And while we were speaking, I was thinking that my desktop is full of clutter. Lots of windows open, like earlier on when I had the problem with one window playing the video. What would you say about that?
I think it's a really valid point. I mean, I've got to hold up my hand here and say that I'm looking at my desk, and over here I've got my phone, and my phone it's on silent, but I keep on having messages flash up.
Okay.
and I keep on seeing that out the corner of my eye. I've turned it over now.
Yeah.
But everything that sits on my desk can draw my attention. And the same as everything that sits on my desktop, everything that sits on my PC, everything that's going on around can draw my attention. So if I want to absolutely focus into something, then I will clear space. I will make a clear space on my desk. I will maximize the screen so that none of the other tabs sit there. I'll do everything I can to stop myself being distracted.
Yes.
But not with that single-minded focus of ignoring everything else. You just remove the things that you find to be a distraction.
Indeed.
Yeah. Turn off your Facebook tab. Don't let your messages pop up. Don't let the notifications come up. They can wait. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. We're in that society, though, that we're so addicted to this social media and instant checking of our messages 24/7. I don't know where it's going to end up, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching on Facebook, please don't turn off your Facebook.
No, that's true. Keep watching.
Yes, please, stay here.
Yeah, tune everything else off, but just watch this.
Yeah, but it's that thing. And one of the things that I found when I was working in the IT industry was that I'd sit and work, and then when I was distracted by when something came up that I couldn't necessarily work through, when I came up with a problem that I just couldn't see my way through, when I used to smoke, I went outside for a cigarette, and I came back, and quite often that stepping away and, okay, breathing in fumes, but stepping outside and breathing gave me the break I needed in order to come back and refocus. But then when I stopped smoking, the break that I took was stick it onto the BBC News site, stick it onto a social media site.
Okay.
I've not changed my position. I've not changed my physicality.
Yes.
I'm still looking at exactly the same screen.
Yes.
The content is different, but actually everything else about me is much the same. I haven't taken the opportunity to change my perspective.
Because you actually do run courses, don't you? Fag breaks for the non-smokers. And I like the title of that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I do a short workshop. Well, it's up to 3 hours on fag break for the non-smoker, which is just playing with that idea and looking at embodied practices that help us to actually find that space. And it isn't always about going outside. There was a guy I worked with a couple of years ago now. He had some anxiety issues and was unable to work at the time. And I'd done some one-to-one work with him, and we shared this idea of this breathing technique. And needless to say, he went off. He got himself another job. He moved to London, and he came back one time and said, "Can I have a session?" And so we met up. And he said, "I suddenly realised that when I needed to take a break, what he was doing was he was stepping out of the office, and he was quite high up in the building, and where he went and stood and breathed, he had massive windows. In the windows, he'd look down, he could see all the people who were smoking." And this is where the title came from, because he turned around to me and he said, "Am I doing exactly the same as they're doing? Am I going out and actually breathing? Just taking the time to take a new perspective?" And yeah, absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. It's finding that habit that you can do, finding that thing that you can do that actually helps you step away.
Yes, I suppose the nearest thing I can think of is going to the water cooler and having a conversation around there, which is a change of perspective.
Absolutely. But even the action of walking to the water cooler can be done in a different way. You know, even something as simple as standing up and stretching at your desk, or standing up and just sort of rolling your shoulders around, or doing something that nobody would take any notice of in an office environment.
Yes.
These things can have massive effects on your ability to focus.
Yes.
If you take the time to actually do them in a way that engages in the idea.
It's about being aware of your body. I mean, I wonder if any of the listeners right now are aware of how they're sitting and how they're breathing.
I'm now starting to get aware of how I'm sitting and breathing.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sitting more upright now.
Yeah.
But you just need you almost like need a reminder. And I think there have been programs on the computer that will stop whatever you're doing and tell you to go and take a break. And that could be go and stretch or go and breathe. Good idea, really, because we do sit for far too long in one place.
Yeah, but then I don't know about you. If a computer tells me to do something, that doesn't necessarily sit as great inspiration for me.
No.
If I can recognise what's going on, if I can recognise the benefit of taking that moment, I'm taking control. It's my thing that I'm doing.
Sure.
When it is those little habits that you can embrace and you can make the most of, that's when they're really powerful.
Yes. Indeed.
When somebody walks into an environment and they can see somebody stressed and they say, just go outside, just calm down. These types of statements, they don't necessarily work as well, because it's not that person taking responsibility, it's them being told what to do.
I understand. Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of it that sits with actually taking ownership of it, actually having your own time with it. And let's say, coming back to the idea of the painting and the artist putting the chi into the painting,
right,
putting the thing into the painting, it is that clarity. I'm sure that if somebody's making something, if somebody's taking time over producing a piece of art, that their focus is going to be on the art. They're not going to be thinking about what I've got to buy on the way home. They're not going to be thinking about that person who wound me up this morning, or the person who cut me up when I drove to work, or their focus is completely into the object, and this is what makes it so special. And this is what sits with the work that we do within our companies, within our businesses. And we've all had those special days. We've all had those moments that everything has worked.
Yes.
And sometimes I can't help thinking that that's when our focus, when our idea is very clear. When we're not engaging in the more negative aspects of what goes on in our day, when we actually have that time.
Do you know, I hadn't really thought about that, about any item that we buy has got, you know, particularly if it's a creative item, it's got so much in it that that person's being, their energy has gone into that. And it could be the same with any business, really, what you're focusing on. You get all of those people, all their energy on that one item, on that one thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, bespoke pieces that are done. I mean, my work in IT was very much bespoke software for businesses.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, the amount of work and effort that went into creating something that was so correct for that company, and
Uh-huh.
then hearing the responses that were coming back from the people who were using it,
Yes.
they couldn't believe that we'd actually taken the time to understand these aspects of the business and built this into the system.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and this is all exactly the same thing.
Mm.
It's that awareness. It isn't taking a mass-produced thing that, okay, somebody has put their energy into the mass-produced thing,
Mm. Mm.
but actually it has to do with relevance. It has to do with the purity
Mm.
that you
Mm.
actually put into the work that you do.
So, John, how can people learn some of the techniques from you? Do you teach regularly, locally, or do you have videos? How can people learn more?
It depends on what you want to actually apply it for. Um, if you're interested from a perspective of developing leadership skills, improving communication, managing stress,
Mm.
presentation skills type of things, then there is specific training that is offered through the Green Chair for this.
Yes.
And I work with clients in order to make sure that the training, although we have standard packages,
Uh-huh.
that the training is suitable for their for their people. Uh,
Mm.
if you're wanting to work on a slightly more individual level, I also do one-to-one training with people,
Okay. Mm.
which focuses into very specific aspects. And again, it's
Mm.
about giving you a tool that you can explore with.
Right.
And I'm very much into the idea of mastery. If you came along for an hour
Mm.
session with me, I would always
Uh-huh.
aim to give you something that you could use and you could take away, and you didn't have to think what comes next.
Right.
You just already had that practice. But
Brilliant.
I also run workshops and classes which
Mm.
focus on the traditional form,
Right.
which is where I draw all of my work from.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
as I say, it depends on what you have the time for and what has the most resonance for you. Um,
Okay. Okay. And so how can people get in touch with you?
you can get in touch with me through the website, through
Hmm.
thegreenchair.co.uk.
Okay.
Um, and also, if you're looking for specific qigong, then there's another website which is energyplay.co.uk.
Right.
Um, and yes, all my contact details are on there. So
Brilliant. Well, what I'll do is make sure I put links to your sites that you've spoken about today. And of course, before we wrap up, and we'll have questions at the end, because I know we've got another John who wants to ask a question, I'm sure. I was just going to say, what is your favourite saying?
excellent. Um, there's two that I use quite a lot. There's one that sits on the Green Chair website that everybody can have sight of at the moment, but actually the one that resonates the most is something from Proust, and he was quoted as saying, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." I
Brilliant.
just love that idea that actually so much of what we want to discover is there already, and we can just open our eyes and see it.
I'm just going to take a deep breath and do one of those pauses and say thank you so much, John, for coming along and being my guest today. It's been fantastic, and I'm really sorry about the little hiccup at the beginning, but hopefully that wasn't too much of a distraction. Now, I'm just going to see if our guest, John, might have a question. John, would you like to ask the other John any questions at all?
Well, would I like to ask a question? It's interesting that I was invited by you to be on this program today, Elaine. I'm very grateful for that.
Mm.
And my I have a phrase that I use quite often in the training that I'm involved with, and I'm bringing it in because it's really simple, but it sums up, I think, pretty much what John was saying. And the phrase, which is not mine, but it's not attributed to Proust or Goethe or anyone like that. It's be curious and expect miracles. And it's a really simple phrase, but
I love it.
It really works for me.
Okay, well, that's not a question, but I absolutely love that too.
It was really something that resonated for me in what John was saying as well, because I think, well, I feel, because I feel is really important for me rather than I think. And I feel a lot of resonance with John. I've known him for quite a while now, and we've occasionally shared space together, and that has been a very joyful experience with him and with his family and with my family as well. And to experience that resonance, that empathy, that synergy of chi, if you like, is a really valuable experience. And any opportunity that any of us get to hold that sort of space together is so enriching for our lives. It's so empowering because, and John alluded to this as well, it enables us to remember who we really are. We become more connected with the chi, with the life force, if you like. And this life force is everywhere. It's who we are. It's who we are, and we're all connected to that.
I'm not sure. I didn't ask this, John, but I wonder if the other John, whether we can develop this chi in this new technology with Hangouts, and if we can, what a great way to connect with everyone around the world.
It's curious that. Sorry.
Go, John.
You, John Millar. You answer the question.
I think there is definitely potential. I think that you can watch video, you can watch film, and you can see when something special is happening, and it doesn't necessarily need to be highly crafted. There's some joyful moments that you just see happening live, and I think that this is infectious. This travel, and so yes, absolutely. I think that there is an aspect of it that sits with any of these types of online interviews or online media. I think we can fill it with all kinds of potential.
Oh, that's brilliant. I think at that note, I'm going to just thank everybody and stop the broadcast, and hope you'll come back next week. I've got the wonderful Suzanne McDonald's Carr talking about the 5 ways. She's an action coach. So please come back next week, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very, very much.
Thank you.